Are you getting concerned about your older dog? Wondering if there's some really strange behavioral problems? Maybe it's canine cognitive dysfunction. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a new treatment that may be helpful to your dog. Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome. If I seem a bit off, a bit cranky in this video, this is like day 4 without coffee. I've gone back in time and I'm sure it's been over 20 years since I've gone like maybe even a day without coffee. Crazy, yeah, it's my slight addiction. So right now I'm drinking this black looking, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a coffee substitute. It's got chicory root, dandelion root. I know it's good for me. There's no caffeine. So if your older dog is starting to show, some unusual behaviors, such as being forgetful, perhaps as, doing some strange things where they can't find their way out of a corner, maybe they're doing, some excessive barking, what they normally did. Some of these anxieties really get elevated. Occasionally, some of these older dogs become more aggressive, or perhaps there's just a huge drop in just cognitive ability. I mean, some of these dogs will actually even forget their owners. So if your dog is experiencing any of those range of behavioral changes, he or she might have cognitive dysfunction. And fortunately, there's a number of things that you can do to consider treating it. I've done a previous video on cognitive dysfunction and natural remedies. I'll put a link in the box below. But some of those particular remedies include the 95% curcumin, include alpha lipoic acid, a wonderful antioxidant that can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, really much higher doses of the essential fatty acids. This video though is about a new-ish treatment. It's one that's been used for a number of years for people, called vitamin D3. Recently I was reading an article by an alternative veterinarian. I'll link to that article as well below. And she was discussing the use of vitamin D3 and having that measured in your dog, and how some of these dogs with cognitive dysfunction are responding to D3 supplementation, which is really interesting. I mean, I've been aware of it for a number of years for people. We've got it in our fridge. We've been supplementing our kids, no question. With us, with people, there's a link between not just your brain function, also with overall immune health, also with there's big thoughts around cancer prevention. And we know there's a real big correlation with those of us who are living in northern climates, exposed to less sunshine. We're not able to manufacture enough D3, hence we're seeing an increase of certain diseases linked to that. For dogs, though, it's slightly different. Our dogs don't create vitamin D from being exposed to sunlight. All the vitamin D they get is via their diet. Historically, in the past, there's been an issue with too much vitamin D being in some of the pet foods, and in vet practice, I did see that with some dogs, some cats, and in that cases, they have too elevated levels of calcium. They have these calcium being deposited in different parts throughout their body, causing real health issues. But it appears possible that now the pendulum has swung the other way, and that perhaps some of these foods are actually deficient in vitamin D. And perhaps that's causing disease within our dogs. So what do you do knowing that? You got me as a veterinarian saying concerns about too much vitamin D, we had issues in the past with dog foods with too much vitamin D, and now I'm talking about supplementing for vitamin D. Great question. If you've got a middle-aged to older dog starting to show some signs of cognitive dysfunction, by all means you can get them tested for vitamin D3. There is a lab called VDI Labs, and I'll actually put a link below in the box. You can actually, as a pet owner, have that test done. Many of the veterinarians won't have access to that. Because what they're doing is they're testing for a metabolite of vitamin D3 called calcitriol, and that's sort of the most important part of it to actually potentially help the brain and prevent brain decline and cognitive dysfunction. So most of the veterinary labs are just going to test for vitamin D. They're not going to be testing for this metabolite, which is what you need to know the levels of in your dog. So what are your options then to potentially help and treat your dog? Well, the easiest thing would be to do it with a whole food supplement. Something that contains a lot of vitamin D3. Good for us, potentially good for our pets is this. This actually resembles salmon. Actually was caught by my son in our lake. But it's salmon, which you all have access to. About an ounce of salmon contains about 500 IUs of vitamin D3. When we're looking at approximate requirements for our dogs, there's a big range, it varies, but it's somewhere around 100 to 200 international units per 10 pounds of body weight daily, meaning Tula would need somewhere between 200 and 400 units a day. She's going to get, definitely she's getting a good chunk of that from her diet, but if I wanted to increase the amount, it would be this. An ounce, which is, what is an ounce? Like a couple tablespoons. So this little bit of salmon, you could also just be feeding your dog a salmon dog food. So let's see what you think of this, Tula. Some for you. Good girl. Some for me. There, we've got our vitamin D3. You want more of that? The other option would be to do it, if you go ahead and get that test done, it's determined that your dog is quite deficient in vitamin D3, would be to get a vitamin D liquid supplement, something like this here. The doses vary, or the concentration varies. Generally, they're quite concentrated, so you have to make sure it's a more dilute one. We used to give one to our kids, and it was 1,000 IUs in 3 drops. It's 333 IUs in 1 drop, so it's quite concentrated. So something like a little Tula, she'd be taking sort of max 1 drop a day of that concentrated vitamin D3. Thanks, Tula, for being part of the video. As a triple bonus for bribing her in the video, you'll get more salmon. Yum. So great snack too. It's not just that it's potentially giving your dog vitamin D. It's a great source of protein, wonderful source of essential fatty acids, along with vitamin D. Yum. Our dogs could use more salmon and more fish in their diet. Well, thanks you guys so much for watching this edition of Veterinary Secrets. If you got to do so, I'd love for you to click up there to subscribe, click down there to like this video, and lastly, when you click the link further in the box below, I can send you my free books, my free videos, how to heal your pets at home with my top natural remedies.